everybody, today I'm going to tell you about 10 things that you're going to need to know before you buy a house in northern Arizona. Now that could be your primary residence, or if you're just looking for a vacation home or a cabin, stay tuned because I'm going to tell you the 10 things that I've learned based on my own experience on buying a home here in northern Arizona. So the channel's Living in Northern Arizona, where I'll teach you everything there is to know about living in northern half of the state of Arizona. My name's Dawn Dickinson. I sell real estate in the northern half of the state. So if you ever want to have a conversation or discussion about real estate up here, or have me help you buy a home or sell a home up here, my contact information is always in the description below. So if you want to give me a call, text, email, or go to my website and schedule a 20-minute Zoom call or phone call, I would love to talk to you about that. So here you go, the 10 things to know about buying a home here in northern Arizona. Okay, the first thing to know is you're probably going to have a termite inspection when you're buying a home in Arizona. And I don't want you to freak out if you would come across termites, because termites are very common, and there are many companies that are very respectable termite inspection companies that are associated with pest control companies that will come in and remediate an issue if you do find termites. It's usually under $1,000. Usually the seller will pay for that, and they can do a very thorough job, and they usually guarantee that for a long time. So if you have a house and you're buying a house and you have a termite inspection and they do come across termites, don't panic, because it is very common in Arizona. And the rumor, of course, is you either have termites or you're going to have termites. So not a catastrophe. If you're coming from Phoenix and buying up here, you probably know that already. But if you're coming from out of state, don't let the termite inspection scare you from buying a home. Okay, the second thing to know is if you're buying a house in northern Arizona and you're in any of the rural areas, it's likely you're on a septic tank. And the state or Arizona Department of Environmental Quality will have requirement where you will do a septic inspection. Now, the septic tank inspection, and I know some people are going to come on here and say it's not a septic tank, it's an on-site wastewater treatment facility, whatever. I'm just trying to give you the high level of what to expect. If you're having a house with the septic tank or whatever you want to call it, there's going to be an inspection, and the seller pays for the septic tank inspection. And during that inspection, you're looking for the report to come out with a rating that says functional. It could even say functional with issues, but you don't want it to say non-functional. That's the problem. Now, typically, if it's non-functional, the seller will come in and they will pay for whatever repairs are needed to make it functional. And typically, if it's not functional, it will often be because tree roots have gotten very big and they've made a hole in the side, or they've crushed the lid, and the seller will often fix that. Now, there is an addendum that we have with the paperwork of a sale septic tank. It's the on-site wastewater treatment facility addendum, and in that addendum, the default is that the seller is obligated to pay up to 1% of the home purchase price to repair the septic, and after that, it's negotiable. Well, so for instance, if you're buying a $500,000 house and they find, oops, a tree root has kind of bashed in the side and we need to make a fix, the seller's default gonna be responsible for up to $5,000, and after that you could negotiate between the buyer and the seller. Now, if I'm representing the seller, I always recommend just fix any issue with the septic tank. Just do it. You know, you owe the buyer a functional septic tank, but you know, some sellers will kick back and you might negotiate. Another thing that happens during the septic inspection is that the tank will be pumped. So during the inspection, they will pump the tank. So when you're moving into the house, you got I don't want to say brand new tank, you got an empty tank. So number two thing when you're buying a house, if you're in rural northern Arizona, you're going to have the septic tank inspection. Now, if you're in the city of Sedona, the city of Flagstaff, even Munts Park, even parts of Cornville, Cottonwood are on a sewer system, and yay, that's always the best. But don't let the septic tank scare you off, because there's always the septic tank inspection so that you can have peace of mind when you're moving into your new home. Okay, number 3 thing to think about is the water source. Now, the reason I bring this up is a lot of the rural areas will have problems with water source. So I don't want to say problem, but there won't be water, say, for instance. So a lot of times you'll see, ooh, there's 15 acres of land for $20,000. Well, that's likely because there's no water there, there's no utilities. Now, the other utilities, I don't really worry about if there's no power, because you could get a solar system, solar panels that will, charge the batteries that will power your house completely. But water here in Arizona is a little bit tricky. So things to consider: if you're on city water, it's great. A lot of communities are on a private water company. I live in Village of Oak Creek of Sedona. There's a private water company. It's cheap for me. It's like $30 a month. Even a lot of the rural communities in like Verde Valley or Rimrock are on a private water company. When I had my home in Mormon Lake, we had a private water company. It was like $400 a year for water. Same thing with Stoneman Lake, private water company, maybe $150, $200 a year for water. So when you can get a private water company or city water, that's the best. Now, some places in the rural areas, I see a lot of it in Camp Verde, a lot of it in Williams, there's no water, and you have to either buy a home that has a well, or you have to get a big old cistern where you have a delivery service that delivers water on a monthly or however you want to do it, set it up. And then the other possibility is you think you're going to go in there and drill a well. Now, drilling a well, I can say, is kind of risky because you don't know how deep you have to go to buy water. To hit water in Flagstaff, they say you could go near Flagstaff, if you're in the rural area, of course, maybe 1,300 foot to get to the aquifer, and you could count on maybe having to go 2,500 feet down to get to water. And the drilling costs, and I'm not a drill well expert. I'm just trying to throw out some numbers just to get your perspective. If you have to drill a well, just don't think, oh, this $10,000 lot is going to be great, but I have to drill a well. This could cost you a lot, because if it's $25 to $50-ish a foot down, if you're going 2,500 feet down, that could push $100,000 for the well. So again, the prices are all over the map, and I don't want to quote them. I would say do your research, but the water source is extremely expensive. If you can buy a place that is on city water, private water company, or already has a well, you're best off. Now, the ones that have a well, if you're buying them, I would recommend doing a well inspection. It's usually only a couple of $100, and the inspector will be able to do a couple of things. First is to inspect the equipment. Is the pump good? Is it going to last? And then the quality of the water. Although sometimes you'll get false readings on the quality of the water based on the time of year. But again, all that, I'm just rambling on about the wells and stuff. That's just something to know. The water source, very important. And if you see something super cheap, 50 acres of land for $15,000, it's probably because there's no water source. And that's an extremely important consideration when you're buying a house in northern Arizona. Number four thing to consider is the slope of the lot. So I do see a lot of lots here. I've seen them in Flagstaff and in Sedona, where it's a beautiful lot with a great view, and it's got a huge slope, or it's like practically solid rock, a solid rock slope. And the thing that's nice about that is usually super sloped lots will come out with a very good view, but you have to have a contractor that knows how to either blast the side so it's, kind of like this, or, level it out. Again, I'm not the construction expert. I'm just telling you to watch for the slope. And then a lot of times, if you see already done house and it looks beautiful in the pictures and it's on a slope, and you'll say, oh, it's, an acre, a beautiful acre lot. But what you won't know is, until you get there, is that it's on a huge slope, and so your lot really isn't that usable, and there might be a big deck around the side, which is good because now you've got some outdoor sitting space, but your lot could be so sloped that makes your land unusable. Now, still, to have an acre on a sloped lot, you're far away from your neighbors and nobody's going to live next to you, so I don't want to say it makes your land not worth that much, but it's also going to make it worth not as much as if you have, a lot that is level that you can use. So the slope of the lot, consider that. And then also I want to let you know that a lot of times I sell to people out of state, And if you see a house on Zillow or something and you're like, wow, I like this house, but I don't know, I can go out there with my little video camera and I can record the lot, the neighbors, the inside of the house, all that. So anyhow, that's kind of outside of the scope of what I'm talking about today, but slope of the lot, very important when you're looking to buy here in northern Arizona. Number 5 is decks. Oh, I love a house with a deck. In fact, I had a Mormon Lake cabin for years, did not have a deck. I always whined, I wish I had a deck on here. And actually, I shouldn't complain because my father built the house and decided not to put a deck up. So I would have loved a deck, but decks can be high maintenance, and here in northern Arizona, a lot of times you'll see a deck that will be just very rotted out, and you take a couple of steps out and you worry you're gonna fall through. And a lot of the cases, the decks are high, you know, like we were talking about with the slope, and you could fall through and get seriously hurt. So decks, although beautiful, they can have a lot of maintenance, and you could see a deck in a bunch of pictures and it looks great. Oh, I want this house with this beautiful deck, but the deck is unstable and it needs work. And they're a lot to fix. Now, they're not a lot to maintain, they're just a lot of work. You got to go out there and, you know, sand it and reseal it in every year, and those are taken care of, then it's great. But if you see a deck and it looks bad, realize that could cost you, you know, $20, $30, $40, even $50,000 to have the deck resurfaced or replaced. Now, one thing to know is there's this new deck they've been doing in the last I don't want to tell you how long. It's this Travex or Trex, something like that. I know I sound like a moron, I can't tell you the brand, but there are these new decks that they're making out of this composite material that you don't need any maintenance. So if I saw a house with one of those, that is a serious plus, serious advantage if you have one of those low maintenance decks that I apologize, I can't remember the name. But it's made out of some composite material. But just be on the lookout if you're looking at a house and has a beautiful deck, that one, if it's in good shape, you're going to have to maintain it, if it's not the Trex or whatever. And the other thing is that if you see it and it's like, I'll just, you know, throw a coat of paint on it, it might be more involved than that, because the structure that keeps the deck elevated is very important, that those beams aren't rotted. So decks, another thing to consider in buying a northern Arizona house. Okay, number 6 is flood zone. So a lot of times here, especially if you're in a place like Verde Valley, like Camp Verde, parts of Cornville or Cottonwood, when you see it's a beautiful riverfront community, for instance, it's like, ooh, I'm near the river and it's a beautiful scene. But remember, it could be in a FEMA flood zone. So I'll see a lot of them here, and I don't know if you can find it on Zillow, but if it looks good and you're not sure, if it comes up as flood zone anything, then flood zone X, it could be a FEMA flood zone. A common one that comes up is flood zone AE. And AE, that may mean you need flood insurance. Now, if you're paying cash, it might not matter. You might just say, I'll take the risk. But if you're not paying cash and you're getting a mortgage, that will have the impact of two things. The mortgage lender may require the flood insurance, and the mortgage lender will also consider the amount that you're paying in the monthly as part of your debt income, and makes the amount that you are going to be approved for, pre-approved for, it will impact that if you have to pay. The cheapest I've seen in flood insurance is $100 a month. It could be a couple $100 a month. And again, I don't want to quote you anything. I would say go to the FEMA website and go to some of the reputable flood insurance carriers. If you want a list of those, contact me and I'll send you some companies that I know that you can contact and talk about flood insurance if you're looking or considering a property that's in flood zone AE or any of the non-X, because you do come across that here in northern Arizona, especially if you're looking like say in Oak Creek Canyon or in Camp Verde or someplace that's close to the Verde River. So flood zone, you don't always think about that, but in northern Arizona you might want to ask. Okay, number 7 is foundation issues. Now, you don't come across this all the time, but occasionally, and I've seen this I don't want to say so much in Flagstaff, but in some of the cabin towns near Flagstaff. My own place in Mormon Lake had this issue where, I don't know, the foundation settles and then you'll have like a huge crack in the foundation. Mine was only in the garage. I had like a crack like this. A buyer sees that and they freak out. I've seen houses in Flagstaff with the big crack in the slab or the foundation. I had one that I sold in Stoneman last year, crack in the foundation. So you want to just pay attention to the foundation when you're looking in northern Arizona, especially in the very mountainy towns. Now, there is a company in Flagstaff that I have sent out to do inspections, and they can fix that, but sometimes it could be costly. It could be $25,000 to $50,000 if it's a really deep crack that goes all the way through or in several places, and so that's something you might want to consider. They're not always a problem though. The one I had was in Mormon Lake, was in the garage. It's just like it didn't really impact the structure of the walls, just down the center of the foundation is this annoying looking hideous crack that I would trip on every time I went in there. So foundation, just pay attention. And I have really not encountered a lot of the problems in Sedona, Verde Valley, or Prescott, but in the mountainy areas I have, and I think it's because of settling. And again, I'm not seeing them a lot. I've only seen maybe a handful of them come up, but a foundation issue, you just want to keep that in mind when you're looking around the house. Okay, so number 8 thing you might want to consider when buying, I've seen this happen in Sedona and Verde Valley, is fence. A lot of the homes aren't fenced, and you might not care if your home is not fenced, but the advantage, of course, for me, I felt like I really wanted a fence, and I looked at 2 houses when I bought the one I'm in now, and one had the fence, the one I'm living in now, the other did not, and I kind of went with the fence because I didn't even know how expensive it would be to put in a fence when I bought my home, and I ended up replacing the one side of the fence because it was a 3-foot high fence, and then everybody walking around could look into my yard, so the lack of privacy, which is the other reason you want a fence, I replaced just the one side of the fence with the 3-foot high, and I made it 5-foot high, and that cost me $3,000. So I know of other people who have gotten quotes for fences around their entire house, and it's $25,000 to $30,000 is what they were quoted. Now, of course, it can be all over the map, but if you see a house and it doesn't have a fence, you're thinking, I'll put one in, it's a couple $1,000s. It could be a lot more than that, so just if you are the type of person that wants a fence, and just keep that in mind if it doesn't have one already, or if you've got one of the wood fences that are falling apart, might cost more than you're thinking to get that thing put up in the first place or replaced. And number 10 is something that is optional. You may want to get a mold inspection. I always recommend a home inspection, but if you're a construction savvy kind of a person, you might be able to do that yourself, which is where you're looking at the integrity of the home. There are things that are very important that the home inspector will get for you, and that will be, the ability or the end of life of the roof, the foundation, the air conditioning system, the heating system. Those are very important things that you might not be able to tell as a novice like me without the home inspection. So I always recommend the home inspection. The other thing is I've had people ask for a mold inspection. Now, to me, if you want the mold inspection, that's fine. I know people that will do it. They're generally not that much money. Now, I just want you to know that in Arizona, it's a very dry climate. We don't really have a horrible problem with the toxic mold that we see in other states. But again, I'm not a mold expert. I do sometimes question the mold reports I've seen come back with a pinhead type of mold, and they're asking for a $4,000 remediation. That's something I just want you to know about. I'm not an expert about it, but in northern Arizona, I have seen that come up. I've seen that be an issue. I've seen that kill sales because a lot of people coming from other wetter states are very paranoid. I myself am not paranoid because I've lived in Arizona for decades, and I know that we're dry here, but if there's a leak and there's mold, of course it's something you are concerned about. You might want to hire a mold inspector. So that's it. That's my top 10 things to think about when you're looking to buy a home in northern Arizona. Of course, I always recommend you work with a local real estate agent because we're privy to this kind of stuff. And if you decide you're going to come up with your, brother-in-law Bill, who works out of Phoenix, he might not know about these kind of things. So keep that in mind. My name's Dawn Dickinson, channel Living in Northern Arizona. We talk about Northern Arizona topics every single week, so if you like the video, please do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, come back next week when I will post a brand new video about the topic. And of course, if you ever have a question about real estate or want me to help you buy or sell a house up here in Sedona, Flagstaff, Verde Valley, Prescott, my contact information is always in the description below, where you could give me a call, text, email, and I will get back to you. I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope to see you back here again next week.